Right, so today we're doing an IS300 into an IS200 swap, and the customer is using a J160 gearbox. So let's get into it. Right, so as discussed, this is transplanting an IS300 2JZ-GE VVT-i into an IS200. This is a complete plug-and-play harness, and this also includes our recently developed remap system. So we have actually remapped the ECU, and I'll go through all of those specifications in a bit. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the entire layout of the harness so that the customer Ryan knows exactly where everything needs to go. I know he's not fitting it, but Mark can have a look at that as well and see where everything goes from there. So starting from the inside the ECU box over here. Now, do bear in mind that this is an IS200 ECU box, so it's not designed to fit an IS300 ECU, but the same rules apply for the IS300 as they do for the 3UZ. You can just undo the 4 screws at the back, pull the board out, grind away this lip, and that'll fit directly in. Otherwise, if you can get your hands on an IS300 ECU box, it's a straight bolt in, and this ECU will go straight down in, no modifications required there whatsoever. Right. So in terms of the interface with the IS200, we've got our 2 plugs over here, which are going to plug into the resin, and they go to the body plugs over there. We then have the body plugs, which is the grey, the blue, and in this case the white, but it goes into the black section over there. We're using the white one because it's what came on the original IS300. Right, then you've got your 3 ECU plugs over there that are solely for the engine harness itself. And then we've got our little junction box, which just gets mounted up into that little lock over there. All right, so that's the entire thing there. What you'll notice now is we've got obviously no MPX converter because it wouldn't need to do that, but we've got no ATMU, we've got nothing like that. This is now fully remapped. All the automatic gearbox codes are gone. We've also increased the RPM limit to 7,000. We've made it have a little bit more power. There's not that much power to have out of it, but we have made the throttle way more responsive. And obviously, most importantly, we've got rid of the secondary lambda codes as well. So that means now that if you remove the cats, you're no longer going to get a check engine light for those secondary lambdas. And in this case, we've actually removed the wiring for the secondary lambda that would normally be over there. And I'll show you that when we get to the other side over there. All right. So that's that whole section over there. Next thing, you've got your grommet, which just goes in over here as per standard. There's no major issue there. Then the harness is going to come up over here. You're going to have your breakout section for your igniter, so that goes in there. Remember, that bolts down over here, so you do need to bolt that down to give yourself an earth, so do remember that. That's important over there. Then we're going to follow the harness up into here, and it's going to enter the piece of plastic that goes on this section over the top, etc. So first thing I'm going to do, we're going to come down here and see what's popping out the bottom there. Then what we'll do is we'll go along there, because it obviously goes underneath the intake, and we'll go over the top. So coming down the bottom here, you'll see there's a little section where it breaks out over there, and coming out there's a little harness section there. You get your first split over here. It then goes to the coolant temp sensor. You won't have that coolant temp sensor there. That's actually a JZX100 one. The hole is there, but we use it when we have aftermarket ECUs on the 2JZ in an IS200, so we can get a temperature signal for the analog MPX converter. Then next up, we're coming along here, and this is your power steering pressure switch. So unlike an IS200, the IS300 and the later generation GS300, so that's 2001 to 2005, they have a power steering pressure switch. All right. Now then, obviously, you're not going to have that unless you transplant the IS300 power steering lines over. If you don't, little trick, just take your IS200 map sensor, plug that in there, tuck it out of the way, and that'll just get rid of the code for that. All right. Next up, out of here, we've got your oil pressure switch, so that goes straight in there. Next up, we've got this little earth strap, and that bolts onto there. Then we've also got your knock sensor plug, that comes out there as well and goes to the knock sensor. And then coming further down here, you'll see we've got 2 wires here. One is for your AC, and the other, if I can get underneath there, that's for your oil level switch. All right, so that's pretty much everything that comes out over here. So that's this nice little section there. So what we'll do now is we're going to go, obviously the intake is in the way, so you're just going to have to believe me when I tell you where it goes. But effectively there's a piece of plastic in there. You can see it's actually bolted down over there. And then if I can see, you can see it's bolted down over there. So there's a long piece of plastic that comes in there. There's a few sections that pop out. Obviously when you have this part of the intake off, then you can do that. I've actually got another video, which I'll probably link over there, and you'll see I did a video with this off, showing you where everything goes. So it might be worthwhile watching that if you want to be 100% sure on that. But effectively coming out of here, you have a breakout point here that comes up and goes to your oil control valve for the VVT-i solenoid. Then you've got injector 1, you've got injector 2. You're also breaking out to go to the noise filter, which goes over there. Okay. Then further along, just before the plastic, that breaks out, and then you've got your TPS sensor, which goes into your throttle over there. All right. Then it's going to come a little bit further along, and you'll see there's some couple of breakouts that you can just sort of see where my finger is there. That's going to then be injector 3. So I'll just push that back on a bit. Otherwise it's going to misfire when I come to test. Okay. But anyway, so we're going to have injector 3 down in there. Now injector 4 over there. So what you'll notice is they are color coded. So remember the colors. So it's gray is 1, brown, then we've got gray, then we've got brown. And funnily enough, if you have a look over here, I'll just move this out the way. We've got gray and we've got brown. So always remember when you're putting it in, just make sure you have odd colors. So gray, brown, gray, brown, gray, brown, gray, brown. All right. And further along here, you have to that one come out there. Then it's going to break out a little bit at the back here. And over there, you're going to end up having this little section here. And that goes to obviously injector 5. Also comes out and goes to injector 6. Also comes out and goes to the cam sensor that's over here. Also comes out and go to this evap valve. So remember, this one over here just has the attachment on the bottom there that goes off to the evaporative system for the fuel tank. So that's that one over there. And then lastly, coming out the back over here, I'll get to the other bit underneath that goes through, but that's where your gearbox comes out. So in this case, you'll see there's our reverse switch, there's our speed sensor plug over there. All right. Now, in the middle here, I don't know if you can see through there, but there's a little clip where it's coming down like that. That's where this little section comes down. And what I'm going to try and do now is, so there you can see it comes down over there. All right, so as it comes down, it goes straight here to this earth point, which just earths over here. It then also comes out and goes to that. So that's for your ACIS. It's your vacuum solenoid valve for your ACIS system. What I do is, I haven't done a video on the JZ showing exactly what it looks like, but I've done a video on the 1UZ, so I'll put the link up to that. The principles are exactly the same in terms of how it works. So it'll give you an idea of exactly what it does. All right. Then it comes down a little bit further over here. Now it's going to really struggle to get the camera in here, but you'll see it splits up and it goes to your knock sensor over there. And then it goes to your starter motor over there. So you can see the little plug over there at the bottom. All right. So that's this whole section over here, and it just pops down right through there. All right. Obviously, with the inlet off, when you're going to be doing all of this, much easier to see. All right. So now we've gone that way. Let's go over this way. So nice and easy. The plastic piece just carries on along here, all the way down to here. In the middle, you're going to break off all your coils. So the coil lengths are only the correct length to reach the coil, so you can't really get that wrong. But anyway, you've got one coil here, another coil in the middle, and then you've got a coil at the back there. So remember, this is running a waster spark system. This coil goes over a plug, and then it has an HT lead, which then takes it to another plug. So that's why you go there. So the numbering of this is actually very weird, because obviously the firing order and the way it goes. So this is actually number 1, because this is number 6. So it's 1 and 6 are firing together. And then 2, so this is actually number 2 at the front. That's 2 and 5, they're firing together. And in the middle, you've got 3 and 4, because 3 and 4 are firing at the same time as well. All right, so that's all your coil stuff over there. Then coming down here, it runs along there. Then it's going to break out and it's going to go to your drive-by-wire motor. So that's got your drive-by-wire positive and negative and your clutch inside there. Remember, this is a hybrid system, so even though it does physically have a cable, it is actually drive-by-wire. Then coming along here, you're then just going to have that, which goes off to your pedal position sensor or accelerator position sensor. Okay, and then the last bit here, that is your lambda sensor for bank 2. So that's these 3 over here. Cylinder 1, so that one's over there. All right. Coming down over here, and I'm just going to move the camera underneath here to see if I can see a bit better. But basically coming down over here, you're going to see it's going to come down to here and it's going to branch off. It's going to go to your crank sensor. So remember, there's actually a little sub harness underneath there. This is the plug where it goes to, but that's your crank sensor over there. It's then going to go to your alternator, which goes over there. And then it's then going to go to your lambda plug. So this one is for bank 1, so 1, 2, 3, and sensor 1. You'll see there that we've removed the plug completely for the secondary lambdas because they have now been mapped out of the ECU, so they will no longer give error codes and it's not looking for them any longer. Last thing that comes out is obviously your mass airflow sensor. All right, so just bearing in mind, all the IS300s in Europe, they utilize this airflow meter. All right, so that is the little tiny one. The confusion sets in because the GS300 had 2 variations. You had 98 to 2001 and you had 2001 to 2005. What you'll notice about the GS300 is the 98 to 2001 had the big bullet style airflow meter, what I call the bullet style airflow meter. It's the same one you use on a 1UZ VVT-i. After 2001, they made a lot of changes. So even on the GS300, they had a power steering pressure switch, exactly like an IS200 has. And then from 2001 to 2005, an easy way to tell, actually, if you don't have the registration of the paperwork in front of you, is the fact that it had Tiptronic. So you'll notice the GS from 98 to 2001 doesn't have Tiptronic. It doesn't have shift up, shift down on the steering wheel, and 2001 onwards does. The later models all use this smaller MAF. The earlier models use the bigger bullet style one. But in Europe, we only got the IS300 with this particular style of MAF. So IS300, Europe, specifically UK, you should always have this style of MAF. If you end up with a bullet one because someone got confused because they thought it ended up with the GS300, don't plug it in. The wiring is completely different. You'll just end up blowing up the actual mass airflow sensor. And same thing applies. Always check your ECU part number. If you have a GS 98 to 2001, but again, it got in the scrapyard, someone got confused and they give you this MAF. If you try and plug it all in, you're going to end up blowing up this MAF because it's actually designed for the larger bullet one. All right. So a little tip for you guys there in terms of that. So that is effectively the complete layout. All right. So hopefully that's very, very helpful for you guys, and I've given you a bit of useful information. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start it up. We're going to get some temperature in it, and then we're going to do the testing. So let me do that, and we're back in a minute. Bye-bye. Right, so we're back now. We're going to be doing the testing, which obviously involves running the engine as well. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run through all the tests that we're going to carry out. It's obviously quite extensive because of plug and play. And then what we'll do is we'll actually get to all the testing. So first test, which is this section over here, that's basically just with the ignition on. The last section down here, that's actually with the engine running itself. All right. So first of all, what are we going to test? First thing we're testing is the immobilizer removal. So you'll see at the moment, we've got the red flashing light for security on there. Bring it in a bit closer. So what I'm going to do is basically put the key in and I'll explain all that, and then you'll see the light will go off permanently, so we know the immobilizer is removed. Then we're going to go over and we look at the ambient temps. That's the temperature on the inside of the car. Now, because obviously the IS300 has MPX natively built in, that is actually sensed, so it will go up and down depending on the temperature. All right. Then we're going to come back to the dash and we're going to look at the charge light, which is obviously down there. We're going to look at the check engine light, and we're going to look at the oil pressure light over there. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge the reverse switch so we can hear the usual IS200 beep when it's in reverse gear, so we know that from the plug all the way into the car, the reverse circuit is 100%. Then we're going to test the speedo by doing my usual. We're going to feed the signal basically into the speed sensor itself and use the power and ground from the speed sensor to make sure that all three wires are correct. Then we're going to go to the OBD2 machine and just make sure that it is actually connecting. Now this is plugged into the Bogger standard location. Now in your case, this would be sort of mounted on the plastic underneath the dash like that. But yeah, we're using the standard mounts, OBD2 connectors inside the vehicle. Then what we're going to do is we're going to test the fuel pump. So again, what I'll do is I'll put a link up here now to a video that I've done that explains exactly how the fuel pump system works. So it's a useful watch if you're not 100% sure, and it'll explain something when I go into the testing over there as well. All right. Then next up, what we're going to do is, because we've got obviously the whole AC system hooked up itself, we're going to do two tests. Number one is we're going to use the machine to activate the AC magnetic clutch relay. So we should hear the relay click over there. So we know the ECU itself is controlling whether the AC magnetic clutch is on or off. Then the second one is your AC signal. So basically what we're testing is that when we press AC over here, I can see on the live data that the ECU has received the signal that said, right, AC should be on or AC should be off. And then the ECU takes over and it controls the whole system. So as long as it's plumbed in all correctly, as long as you got your pressure switch, and as long as your pressures are all within spec, the AC should work 100% in this particular case. Then we're going to move on to the engine running. First one is starter circuit. Well, simple enough. What we want to do is make sure that when you put your key in the barrel and you turn it and everything is plugged in correctly and you've given your starter motor power, as you saw down there when I went through the layout, that when you turn the key it starts. Fantastic. That's all we want to see. Next up, we're going to test the drive-by wire. So obviously this is a cable. Now if you listen very closely, you'll see the first section. I'm not moving anything. I'm not touching a throttle body or nothing. So remember, these systems, the last third is when you actually touch throttle body. So here I've got nothing. Now when I get to there, listen. Right, so basically what I'm testing is we're just going to touch the throttle like that. We're going to hear the engine rev up. That tells me that the actual motor is working. You'll also actually hear it humming when I turn the ignition on. It's completely normal. It's a stepper motor. That's what they do. So you'll actually hear it working from there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to test the ACIS. So in this case, it's always in its position of rest. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go to the OBD2 machine. We're going to test the ACIS vacuum solenoid valve, and you're going to see this little valve actually move. And when I do that, all right? Then we're going to test the oil control valves. So what we're going to do again from the machine, we're just going to test it. As soon as I do, the engine should die. Okay, that's showing us that the oil control valve is actually working. The V8s, it doesn't die, but that's because you've got a second bank to keep it going, while the other ones, this one you don't. You're only a straight inline 6. Then we're going to test injectors and coils. So I'm going to try and get all the injectors unplugged one by one, and then we're going to actually hear the engine misfiring as I remove them. Okay. For the code, it's going to pick up all the misfire, so I'll reset the codes after I do that so we don't end up with all those misfire codes. Then we're going to come and we're going to look at the tacho. So the tacho should be working 100%. We'll make sure that is the case. Then we'll look at the coolant temp to make sure that that is coming through and we're actually getting the coolant temperature on the dash itself. Then we're going to go through and look at the codes and diagnostics. So in this case, we should have absolutely no codes on whatsoever because we've basically mapped everything else out that shouldn't be there. So we'll make sure that that is the case. And as you saw, we've got no atomy device or anything on there. So there's nothing tricking the ECU to think there's an automatic on there. It is now purely just all remapped out. No dramas there. All right. So to start off with, let's get the ignition in. So a part of the immobilizer removal. Now I have done a load of videos on the immobilizer system, so do feel free to go and watch it. But essentially, the quick and dirty of it is the ECU will look for the key the second you insert the key. You don't actually need to turn the ignition on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the key in, I'm not going to turn it, and you're going to hear the actual relay to power up the system is going to click. So 1, 2, 3. Right, I've not turned the key. You can clearly see the dash is not alive. But in actual fact, the power circuit to read the key is active. And what you'll notice now is we've got no security light. So again, I'll just pull that out. So you'll see that. I'm going to try and get it in the same shot as well. You can see hopefully the security light. 1, 2, 3. As soon as I put the key in, you see the security light goes out. Okay, so you don't need to test it by actually turning it on. Just a quick tidbit for you guys with the normal cars. If the security light goes out immediately, that's a master key. If the light stays on for a few seconds solid and then turns off, that's what they call a valet key, right? Reason being, master key, you can use something like this to program new keys from a master key for the immobilizer system. The valet key, you can't use this to program new keys in, and it's pretty obvious why. Because if you handed your keys to a valet to clean your car, you wouldn't want him to be able to literally code new keys while he's cleaning your car. Hence the name valet key. You can hand it to anybody you want and they can't code new keys for the immobilizer to there. One other thing that I think is a lot of misinformation about is the immobilizer is purely to do with the engine. It's got nothing to do with the alarm. So I'm talking about the central locking / alarm. This little ceramic chip in here that the ECU reads is completely independent. You could literally open a car door and have the alarm going off, and you can put the key in the ignition and that security light will stop flashing. All right? Simple as that. Two completely different systems. You also don't need a master key to program central locking. Because obviously Toyota thought if you can't start the engine because the immobilizer is a decent enough system, then who gives a crap about the alarm? All right, okay, so just to clear all that stuff up, because I see it so many times, people think it's a massive issue. Second issue, actually, while I'm here, all of the stuff like the ignition barrel is the same on every single vehicle. Okay, this antenna that reads the key, it's the same on every single vehicle. If you had to lose the inner of your key for whatever reason, I don't know why, and you got new keys coded and you wanted to basically buy another ECU, all you need is the ECU and the ceramic chip that's in here. That's all you need. You don't need to buy the ignition barrel, you don't need to buy the antenna, you don't need to buy all of that crap. You just have the ceramic chip and that is all you need to change the key on there when you've lost all of your keys. All right. We can also virginize them as well, and we can remove the immobilizer obviously, but yeah, if you guys want to do that. Sorry, the rant over. Right, so that's the immobilizer removed. So what we're going to do now is flick the ignition on. Everything's coming alive. I've got the check engine light on there. I'm just going to move over to the ambient temperature. There you go, 14 degrees. So we're happy that that's all coming through. Charge light, oil pressure, and check engine light. So we've got check engine light, we got charge light, and we got oil pressure light. So that's all groovy. When we start it, obviously these will go off, so that's great. And we'll make sure they're working correctly. Right, reverse. So nice and simple. All I'm going to do is bridge that over there. And lo and behold, there's the annoying IS200 beep. Let's pull that out because that's all done. Right, so we're going to move over to the speedo now. So again, all I'm basically doing, it's a Hall effect style sensor. So pin 1 is 12 volts, pin 2 is ground, and pin 3 is signal. So what I'm basically doing is I'm using the 12 volts in the ground to power my device. So you can see I've got the LED flashing on there. So now I know that the 12 volts in ground are perfect in this particular plug over here. But what I am going to do, because I've just turned the ignition off and on again, I'm going to put this little signal converter back into test mode. And as soon as I do that, fantastic, you'll see the lights obviously change the flashing. So what I'm going to do is move our clocks over here, and all I'm going to do now, okay, let me try and do this the best I can single-handedly, but all I'm going to do now is just give the signal there, and you can see the speedos going up and down. Right, so I'm super happy that literally from the plug all the way to the dash, the wiring is 100% correct. And let me just get this out of the way before we start it. Don't want that catching in the ring gear. Right, okay, so now we've got that. So let's go over to the OBD2. Now obviously I've already got it started up because the machine takes forever. So I'm going to go into function. I'm going to go into system select, and you'll see there straight away it picks it up as an IS300. Sorry, this lights, let me just, there you go, IS300, looks pretty clear there. Okay, so happy that the OBD2 machine is connecting, happy that it's picking up the correct ECU, so that is all great. Now what we're going to do is the 2 tests, or 3 tests. We're going to do fuel pump and the 2 AC tests. So all I'm going to do is go into active test. You'll see it says fuel pump relay and fuel pump. If you want to know why that is, go back, watch that fuel pump video that I explained how Toyota and Lexus power their fuel pump systems. So in our case, we're just going to go into fuel pump. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to press the arrow, and the fuel pump's going to activate. So 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm just going to go over here. So you should hear the fuel pump or circuit opening relay click. So 1, 2, 3. And if it's picking up, you may actually hear the fuel pump in the container on the other side actually activating as well. We can also see that we've got fuel pressure there. So you can see that screw is risen up on the fuel pulsation damper, not regulator. All right, so that's dialed on there. Right, so the AC signal. So first thing we're going to test is the clutch. So I'm going to go back into active test. We're going to go to AC magnetic clutch relay. So that's going to tell us, that's going to basically force the ECU to activate the magnetic clutch relay, which will then do that. So all I'm going to do now, right, is because we've got the AC pump actually hooked up, I'm just going to hold the camera here and hopefully you can see. Let me just hold that still. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. So hopefully you can actually see the motor clicking in, and you can hear the relay clicking because the relay's in that little fuse box over there like that. So in terms of the ECU controlling the magnetic clutch, super happy with that. So next thing we want to test basically is to make sure that when you press inside the car for the AC, that the ECU picks that up. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my live data. I'm going to scroll down until I get to AC signal. Let's have a look. There you go. AC signal at the moment is off. God, these lights are terrible. Sorry, let me just, I'm just going to do that. So hopefully that's, let's have a look. Where's AC signal? Okay, it's down at the bottom there. So now it's off. Yeah, I've just flicked the button. And then you see AC signal on. You can see all I've basically done is just flick that button over there. So as I flick it off, you'll see AC signal goes off. Right. So that's all perfect, that's all happy, that's exactly what I would want to see. So we've gone through all the things with the ignition on, so I'm happy that all the systems are working as we expect it to. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to start her up and go from there. So it's been a while, 12 minutes. I'm just going to run through these tests again quickly. I'm going to talk while I'm doing them, but you can't always hear me. So let's just quickly go through. So starter circuit, simple, does it start on the key? Drive-by-wire, does it rev when I just touch it? ACIS, we're going to go back into the machine, we're going to test the vacuum solenoid valve for the ACIS, and you should see this little valve move. So I'll move the camera over there when I do that. Oil control valve, we're going to test that in there, and we have had a bit of the issue this morning where the machine seems to be playing up, so hopefully it does it. It has worked the last couple of times we tested it, but I'm going to preempt you on that one. Injectors and coils, I'm going to run around and I'm just going to pull out all the injectors one by one so we can hear them misfiring. I'm then going to put them all back in again. I'm going to have to jump back, clear the codes because it'll have a whole bunch of pending codes for misfire. All right, then we're going to go over to the tacho, make sure we're getting a tacho signal there. Coolant temp, well actually in actual fact you can already see that the coolant temp is off the needle there and going up. And lastly we've got the codes and diagnostics, so we'll go through, make sure you can see there's actually 0 codes even after the engine has run a couple of times. and then obviously I'll go through about diagnostics and how to carry it out. So in this case, you can only do diagnostics via an OBD2 machine, not via the flashing check engine light codes like we do sometimes. All right, so let's get into it. So let's fire it up. So again, from your key, you're just going to turn it and start her up. So 1, 2, 3. Remember, the injectors are just gently pressed on and not plugged in, so just so I can get access to them easily. Right, so drive-by-wire circuit. So all we want to do is... Right, so that works as we should. ACIS. So again, all I'm going to do is go into active test. Intake control vacuum solenoid valve 1. Okay, and as I turn it on, right, so that's working exactly as it should. Right, let's go into the oil control valve and let's see if that works. It's going to kill the engine when it does it. So let's go. VVT-i control bank 1. Right, can't judge that worked the first time. Right, so because it's retarding the cam so massively, it does cut out, but it does actually give you the warning there, to be brutally honest with you, that it will do that. Okay, so we're going to start it up again. Fantastic. Right, so that's oil control valve. Let's go and do all the injectors. So we're going to start from the front here. So we've got number 1. Put that back in. Number 2. Put that back in. Now that's number 3. Alright, so I can't show you this, but that's number 4. Alright, let's grab number 5 here. That's number 5 and number 6. That's number 6. Alright, so that's all the injectors working. So now it's going to give us all the pending codes for the misfire. There you go. Oh, only 1. That's fantastic. So I'm just going to clear that quickly. Go back into data list. Right, so what we want to do, tacho. There it works. Okay. I'm just going to rev it now to 7,000 RPM so you can see it does actually go all the way there. So brace yourself. Alrighty, there you go. Coolant temp. Obviously it's climbed even more now since we've had the engine running. And in terms of codes and diagnostics, see we're picking up. There you go. We've got all the misfires there. I think that's where the injectors are not plugged in properly. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on there. I'm just going to kill it. Now that I've cleared the codes. Hold it up again. Okay, just going to switch it off. Start it up again. Rightio. Right, so as you can see, we've got 0 codes. We've got absolutely no codes for the automatic gearbox whatsoever, so that has been completely remapped out. We've also remapped up the secondary lambda sensors, so you see those codes are not coming back. Now obviously they can take a while to come back, that's why I started it twice. But as I see here, we've got absolutely no codes for those particular ones, so that is now fantastic. You guys can remove your cats. Obviously for MOT purposes, you need your cats, okay? But yeah, you can know if they do fail, you will no longer get an annoying check engine light for your secondary lambda sensors, which is brilliant. All right, so everything is working exactly as I expected it to. My ears are hurting now, so I am going to call it a day. We're going to get this boxed up and send it off to the customer so that he can get his car running, because I know he has been waiting a long time. Yes, Ryan, I do know. So we're going to get this all boxed up over the weekend. We'll get it over to Mark so you can get your car running. Anybody else, if you've got any questions you'd like to ask, please feel free to comment below. I try and get to them as much as I can. Otherwise, if you want, I have a dedicated person on our Facebook page which is answering messages, and they do get them to me and I get to them as quickly as I possibly can. So yeah, If you have any questions, let me know. If you'd like us to do more videos on anything, maybe to regards to the remap, etc. If you'd like more information on that, please get in touch with us. But for Ryan, let's get this off to you. For everybody else, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again later. Bye-bye.